Oklahoma softball is moving on to the super regional round, a sentence you guys have heard and seen a billion times before. But Oklahoma's moving on to the super regional round after just dominating the Norman Regional, run ruling all three games, allowing just 3 runs, putting up 31 on their opponents, 31 to 3, outscoring their 3 opponents this weekend. Easy pickings for this Oklahoma softball team. They're heading to the Super Regional. We are here to break it all down on this episode of Quick Slants, a quick video series fueled by OU Insider. I am Jesse Crittenden. I am joined by Brian Clinton. And Brian, I had when I write stories during the week about softball or anything, but especially about softball, I try to be as objective as I can. I mentioned a couple times in some of my preview stories that I didn't expect Oklahoma to really be tested. I was even nervous about writing that, and not only were they not tested, it was almost like they sleptwalked through the regional. Brian,
Yeah,
that's kind of what happened, I think.
Yeah, very impressive. I was just impressed with their poise. Like, I mean, that first you saw some jitters maybe in that very first game for a little bit, and then they once they opened it up from there on out, it was pretty dominant.
Being at Love's Field for all three of those games, it just you forget how young this team is, and you forget the players that are making some of these plays, just how young they are. It's crazy because being there at the stadium, it feels like a veteran team that's oh ho hum. We've done this a billion times before, and it's like the program has done this a billion times. Not these players haven't done this a billion times. Even Ilana Agbayani mentions in post game today, this is her first time in the NCAA tournament. And I was like,
Wow. Yeah.
that's insane to think about. There's a lot we need to break down here. A lot of things that we can talk about, but you told me you got a couple stats.
Yeah.
So I ask you to throw them at me, Mr. Clinton.
Well, today, reading off my notes here that I wrote myself, team hit 519 today against Cal. That is the fifth highest mark of the season for them. And it is their first time hitting over 500 against a team that is top 30 in the RPI.
Mm.
So their best day at the plate.
Right.
Their best to that point was 423 against UCF, and they're 30th in RPI. So that was the best hitting performance they've had against a good opponent this year. Abigail Dayton quietly 10 hits over the last 10 games.
She's had a few really good, just
Yes.
good base hits.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like, we can talk about, I mean, obviously Ella Parker's absolute bombed. Like, I mean, Patty said it was like the longest that she's seen at this park, and it was incredible. But I mean, you could talk about Cassidy Pickering, but the middle and bottom of that lineup really rose. They elevated their game this week, and I mean, that's why it was as dominant as it was. So, yeah, Pickering 5 of 7 I think, yeah, 5 of 7 with 4 walks and 9 RBIs on the weekend. So yeah, they're just from top to bottom was great. And then Sam Landry, I was a little surprised at this because I look and see, okay, she's starting, okay, she's in the game. She only threw 10 innings
Mm-hmm.
over the weekend. She threw 158 pitches. Um, she gave up 10 hits, but she had 11 Ks. She had 5 walks, but I mean, she was not, I wouldn't say she was not at her very best, but she was plenty good enough. And I liked how they used the pin behind her. It was very placement oriented, very, very strategic in how they did. So I was very impressed overall. Yeah, 8 home runs this weekend. They just keep 110 on the year now. So they keep swinging the bat really well, and it's really difficult to beat a team that can put it out of the park as often as they do.
A lot of good stuff in there, man. Especially let's put a pin in Sam Landry. We'll come back to that. A lot of good stuff, but and it's all centering around the offense. And I think that was my main takeaway from this weekend is it's just from top to bottom. And you mentioned you're getting hits from Abby Dayton, you're getting hits from Abiyani. The one thing, and we need to talk about Cassidy Pickering too, but one thing that is emerging for this team at the right time is Sydney Barker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Sydney Barker. Not only, I mean, she starts at first base in that first game. I mean, it starts in the outfield in games 2 and 3. She has solidified herself as an everyday starter.
Oh
And
yeah.
on top of that, really interesting tweak for her from the coaching staff in games 2 and 3. She's batting third. She batted third in the second and third
Yeah.
games. And you go from thinking, oh, maybe Barker can give you something at the bottom of the lineup. No, she's been one of the team's best hitters
Yeah.
over the last few games. And Brian, that's kind of a development. I mean, you've been on the Sydney Barker thing
Yes.
since the beginning of the season. I thought we got through enough of the regular season that it maybe maybe she can contribute here and there, not be an
Mm-hmm.
everyday starter. What she's doing, man, she was really big in those first 2 games in particular, especially
Yes.
that first game against Cal on Saturday. She was
Yes.
big. If she's going to be hitting like this and can be an everyday starter, that it changes the complexion. And not only that, but just what you're getting from the rest of this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
If you're actually getting contributions from the middle and the bottom of the lineup, Gabby Garcia is batting fourth now.
Right.
She's just hit 3 home runs in the
Just
last four
casually.
games.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that maybe was above all else, and there's a lot of things we could talk about. Sydney Barker emerging as an everyday starter,
Mm-hmm.
batting in the top of this lineup is a huge thing for me. And you got to give yourself credit, man. You've called the Sydney Barker thing for a little bit now.
Well, this group of players, I have to go back to it because it's so impressive to me, especially with what you're seeing around the country. I mean, that some of the top teams. I mean, A&M's in a dogfight right now. They've got a lot of veteran players. OU just was cool, calm, and collected, and they are like the youngest team in the tournament. I mean, they're
Yeah.
incredibly young, and they just play so. And like you just said, the way that Gabby Garcia, the way that Sydney Barker, the way that they're swinging the bat and playing in the field, some of the plays made it shortstop. I mean, they just look like veterans, and it's very impressive. I have a hard time, um, I have a hard time saying that there's been a better part of their season, as far as how much they've elevated their game as a team. They really feel like they're, I don't want to use the word peaking yet, but it does feel like they're starting to play well-rounded softball.
Patty kind of said as much after the game today at her presser. I mean, she basically said it feels like we're kind of peaking. And I think the biggest indicator of that is, God, there's so many things we could talk, so many individual moments we could talk about, man, it's just I mean, Ella Parker hitting a home run today that traveled 285 feet, velocity of 81 miles per hour going out of the stadium. The Alana Arbigiani 3-run bomb today. Gabby Garcia hitting 2 home runs over the weekend. There's so many things we could talk about. I think the bigger thing for me is the way they were scoring. Like, yeah, they hit 8 home runs. Sure, it was a lot of power hitting, but even in that first game against Cal on Saturday, they went 11-2. How many hits they had? 7.
Hmm.
Had 7 hits. Now today in the regional final, they had 14. Yesterday they had 7, still scored 11 runs, and one of the biggest reasons why is it wasn't because they were just getting base hit after base hit. It was I mean, they walked 7 times as a team. It's
Yep.
getting a walk here, a base hit here. All of a sudden, the bases are loaded, and now, you've got Cassidy Pickering with a grand slam to kind of
Mhm.
break the game open. I think that was the bigger thing. And I asked her about that grand slam afterwards, and she actually said, it's kind of the way this team likes to score is it's a walk here, it's a walk there. All of a sudden, you've got 2 base runners on. You got bases loaded.
And then
That's
pressure's
it.
on.
Score
Yeah.
running, batting with runners in scoring position, or even just runners on, has been an issue for this team all year.
Yep.
And I think even in that second game in particular against the second game, the first game against Cal, was maybe the biggest indicator for me of like, oh, this is a team that's capitalizing on momentum. They're
Yes.
stringing base runners together and then bringing them home. I think
Right.
that might be in terms of peaking. That may have been kind of the missing piece for this team. Is think about how many times this year where it's like, oh, they've got bases loaded with one out, can't bring any of them home. We're going to mention one of those later. Think about how
Mhm.
how often that's happened this year. It
Right.
just wasn't happening this
Right.
weekend. That might
Yeah.
have been the
No.
missing piece.
It was the opportunistic offense was there. They were not just this team's been hitting the ball out of the park all season long, but they there were not blown opportunities. They took advantage, and I think you really saw just how no. you don't have a Jordy Ball in the circle this year. I mean, Sam Landry has been incredible, but I think if you are able to capitalize on the opportunities you have offensively, this team is going to be incredibly difficult to beat. And if they play that way, you know, it allows you to really run up the score. And the way that the lineup is built and is starting to play, that applies so much pressure to the other team. Like you have to be perfect. You have to be so good on the other side. And if you're trying to match run for run, this team is going to be it's going to be somebody that is very difficult to deal with.
I think the other thing before we talk about the pitching is, I mean, Cassidy Pickering, man. I mean,
Holy cow.
what is
Yeah.
there? What else is there to say about a sophomore? She's a sophomore. Let's keep that in mind about how incredibly young she still is. Cassidy Pickering, man, she has just turned herself into, I mean, the best leadoff hitter you could really ask for in terms
Yeah.
of everything that she can do. Look, she leads the team in batting average. I think that's she's doing everything. It's not just bombs. She's second on the team in home runs. She hit three this weekend, including that grand slam in the first game against Cal. She can get you base hits. You need a base hit. She can get you a base hit. You need a home run. And again, I think in theme with capitalizing with runners on, I think that was the biggest thing. Is some of those home runs were the result of getting
Yes.
base runners on.
Yep.
One thing I this had just completely this just had completely flown over me looking through the stats. You know how many walks Pickering has this year? Do you know?
I don't off the top of my head, no.
51,
Mm,
10 more than the next closest Sooner.
wow.
You're getting everything from
Yeah.
her: base hits, home run, power hitting, walks. I mean, I don't know what else. I mean, she's batting 419 on the year, slugging 872, on base 567. She leads the team in all three categories.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a lot about Ella Parker this year. Cassidy Pickering is easily putting in her name as the best hitter in softball.
Yes.
That's what's
Well,
happening.
and on top of that, like I think that's why the improvements and the production from the back end of from the bottom end of the lineup from 7, 8, 9. Um, that's why it was so important is because you set the table for her and she's able to do what she does. Yeah, she's incredible, man. I'm really excited to see what she looks like in a couple of years. I know we're not supposed to look ahead, but holy cow, has she made a foundation for herself.
It's crazy how good she is, man. Let's talk just a little bit about Sam Landry because you mentioned her earlier, reading off your stats. Which thanks again for those are good stats, man.
That's what I do.
Stat guy. I so she starts all three games this weekend. That surprised me a little.
Yeah.
Especially today to start the first game against Cal. I mean, you have the if necessary in your back pocket. It was clear OU was not interested in playing for an if necessary game. They wanted to get this over with. It's an interesting weekend for her because I think you mentioned there's some ups and downs. She gave up 7 hits in the first game against Cal, and some of those were. And then I think she had an inning where she gave up 3 straight singles, and that
Yeah.
third one was an RBI.
Mhm.
Had a lot of walks too. I think that was the thing that was interesting that she walked a ton of batters. But I mean, you gave up 3 runs over the weekend. You also saw the defense make a ton of incredible plays, and I think you mentioned the most important thing is as much as she started 3 games, which that surprised me. She did. It's not like she threw a ton.
Nope.
She didn't really. 10 innings is
158 pitches. I mean, she almost hit that in one game against Texas. Was it against? No, whatever
Florida.
game she threw 144.
Florida was that
Yeah,
first game against
Florida. That's
Florida.
it. Yeah, Florida, Florida.
That's like, I mean, really, 158 pitches in 10 innings is about on par, if not a little less than what she would throw in a conference weekend.
Yep.
I mean, right?
Yes.
I
Yep.
think it's just more about. I was a little surprised they didn't throw Lowry or Deal to start the third game,
I was
but
too.
did give me some give me some insight in terms of. I mean, is it possible she throws all three, or if she starts every game in the supers? Is that on the tape? You know, that's
Maybe.
the kind of
Yeah.
stuff that's going through my mind a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also thought the bullpen had some good moments too. They just didn't pitch a ton. I don't know.
Yeah.
What'd
I
you
did
see?
too. Well, I really liked what we saw out of both Deal and
Lowry.
Lowry. Thank you. Um,
You're the stat guy. I'm the name guy.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, they were both, it was just efficient. Like, that's the best way of putting it. It was efficient from the bullpen. Um, like I said, Landry wasn't at her best, but she was plenty good enough. And it was the defense behind her. Well, there was one error on the weekend, and that was in today's game. It ended up not being costly
It was
really for them.
Landry.
Yeah. So it wasn't anything that her defense behind her was incredible this weekend, and I think that's the infield. Can't say enough about how well they've played, and it just seems like they're in tune right now. So as long as the defense behind her is playing well, I think this team's got they've got the juice.
Patty referred to Gabby Garcia and Agbayani as maybe the best middle in in college softball, and
Yeah,
I think that's showcasing a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit more later this week about this upcoming super regional with Bama, and it will be Bama. They got everything they could ask for from Virginia Tech today, but they did beat Virginia Tech. It will be OU Bama, and obviously the main storyline, Brian, being that this is a Bama team that's coming to Norman, but beat OU in Tuscaloosa a
yeah,
few weeks ago,
yeah.
and beat them not like handedly, but confidently. I mean, beat them two
Yes.
out of three games. And Brian, I mean, we'll talk about this series more later, but I think the thing for me is there's a lot of things that went wrong for OU in that series. But I think if they're going to be hitting not only like this as a team, but if they're going to be capitalizing with runners in scoring position, I think that's the biggest thing for me because I mentioned to you before we started recording. I mean, think about that Bama game. It was game two or game three. OU's got bases loaded in the seventh tie game with
Yeah.
Pickering coming to the plate with only one out on, and they can't get it done. Can't
Yep.
bring a runner home. OU loses in extras.
Yep.
That's what cost them. And obviously the competition's going to go up, or that Bama's going to be better than any of the teams they face this weekend. But I think that's an encouraging sign for me if I'm OU going into this weekend or going into this next weekend.
Yeah.
What are you
No, it
seeing?
is. You know, I'd kind of mentioned this a little bit beforehand, but this team is hitting right now. I mean, just over the course of the last four games, they're hitting as well as they have all season. They've hit 379 or better in the last four games. You know that we're adding the Arkansas game in um, to that, and the last time that they did that was going into Tuscaloosa, right before Tuscaloosa against Oklahoma State and UCF, and they were playing really well on the offensive side of the ball. So it's almost setting up as I don't really want to call it a redemption arc because but that is the one team this year. I believe Bama held them to was it 0.87 or point one of their lowest average in a game this year.
It was maybe their worst offensive series of the entire year
Yeah.
at Bama.
And I think this really feels like a I don't want to say that they were hoping for Alabama to end up being the team that comes to Norman, but I am sure there's at least part of that group that's excited to kind of redeem themselves after how they looked. And this team is just playing with so much confidence right now. Like that's the big thing is I feel like after that Texas series, after the LSU series, like it really feels like they have turned a corner, and then the Arkansas game really just kind of blew things open. They've looked like a different team over the last couple of weeks. And so I'm excited to see them kind of match up against Alabama again. And a lot of that is what's it going to look like at home because Alabama is coming into what should be a rowdy Loves Field. So it'll be fun.
No, it will. And I think the last thing I'll say is Brian. I mean, I didn't think OU would get tested this weekend. This is more or less what I expected. It wasn't the toughest regional. There are
Yeah.
tougher regionals out there, but if you look at what's happened in softball this weekend, man, a lot of teams, a lot of tough team, or a lot of top teams getting tested
Yeah.
or upset. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what's happening this weekend, and we've got even as we're recording this, Liberty and A&M in the if necessary game are scoreless in the bottom of the second, and I mean Liberty could win this game, but I mean even if they don't, that's a serious. I mean they've tested A&M this weekend, man.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
have a lot of crazy stuff. So if you're OU, no, win the toughest regional, but taking care of business like this for a young team,
Can't put a price on it.
That's going to do it for us here on this episode of Quick Slants. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, make sure to like and subscribe here at this OU Insider YouTube channel. Even more softball content both here and over at OUinsider.com. Brian, appreciate you for your time as always, Mr. Stat Guy. Oh, also the Oklahoma City Thunder going to the Western Conference Finals. It's been a good day. It's been a good day. But appreciate you guys as always. We'll see you guys next time later on this YouTube channel. Until then, you guys have a good week.